Hi, this is Alex from Android Central, and today we're taking a look at the Sony Xperia T. The Xperia T is Sony's flagship international phone for late 2012, and it sees Sony returning to the classic Xperia Arc design. You can see we've got this completely clear flat screen on the front and a concave design on the back. It's actually quite a bit larger and heavier than the Arc though, with a 4.6-inch screen on the front and this non-removable soft touch back panel. So it's a fairly large device without being too oversized, and it fits nicely in the hand thanks to its curved back. In terms of buttons, you've got the three main ones along the right edge, power, volume, and a two-stage camera button. All three are located a bit further down than usual. That makes the power key easy to hit with your thumb or middle finger depending on whether you're left or right handed, though it does mean that you have to shuffle things around a bit if you want to get to the volume rocker. We should also mention that unlike other Sony phones and most Android phones in general, the Xperia T ditches fixed capacitive keys in favour of Galaxy Nexus-like on-screen buttons. Besides that, along the top edge we've got a 3.5mm headphone jack and micro USB on the left. Worth noting there's no micro HDMI port on here, unlike earlier Sony flagships. We do have removable storage though, and there's a micro SD card slot under this clip-out area on the right. That's also where you put your micro SIM. And finally, cameras. We've got a 13 megapixel Sony Xperia shooter around the back, as well as a 1 megapixel front facer. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at the screen, and with it some even more impressive hardware. It's a 4.6-inch laminated IPS panel that Sony's branding as its HD reality display. It runs at 720p resolution, and it really is incredibly bright and clear, coming very close to matching the HTC One X's Super LCD 2 screen. The screen also boasts Sony's mobile Bravia engine technology, and that kicks into action when you're viewing photo or video content to reduce the noise and enhance contrast in whatever's on screen. From a software standpoint, we're running Android 4.0.4 Ice Cream Sandwich, so it's not the latest version of Android, and that's one of the phone's greatest weaknesses. It's by no means slow, it's running a dual-core Snapdragon S4 chip, but if you've used a Jelly Bean device, the lack of the Project Butter enhancements is pretty clear to see, particularly in the launcher. Taking a look at the UI as a whole, we've got Sony's Xperia software on top of ICS here, and though it has a lot in common with earlier Sony skins, there are quite a few differences to be found. First up is this redesigned task switching area. In addition to showing recent apps along the side, there's also this additional menu down below for small apps. These are miniaturized windowed applications you can bring up in the foreground while you're doing other stuff in the background. We've got calculator, stopwatch, note-taking and voice recording apps in there to start with, and there's a button to add more from the Play Store when Sony releases them. Being a Sony phone, there's a fair amount of Sony branded apps included in the Xperia T. We've got PlayStation Store on here, which gets you access to a few exclusive PlayStation mobile games for a price. Likewise, the Music Player app is rebranded as a Walkman app, although functionally it's more or less identical to the way it was on earlier Sony phones. That means you've got some decent sound enhancement options and integration with the Music Unlimited streaming service. There's also Timescape for social networking through Twitter and Facebook, and Xperia Link, which lets you automatically tether to a Sony tablet if you have one of those. The excellent Sony camera app is included too, letting you take control of the built-in 13 megapixel shooter with features like touch focus and image stabilization, alongside the usual ISO, exposure and metering options. And you can also long press the physical camera button to jump straight into the camera app in a second or so, even if the screen's off. So it's a solid high-end offering from Sony, and our only major initial gripe has to do with the lack of Jelly Bean on this device, though an update is promised in the near future. For more on the Xperia T, be sure to check AndroidCentral.com for our full review in the days ahead.